Attention! This is an announcement from the New World Order. Please remain calm and stay seated while we are injecting subliminal messages. Welcome to the Cabinet of the Strange and Macabre.
Ruins. The crumbling remains of former feats of architecture oftentimes make for some pretty interesting backgrounds for all kinds of artistic shenanigans. Sadly, in most cases, your stereotypical abandoned asylum or leftover bunker from some bygone war can't be found quite that easily, because we as humans have the weird tendency to at some point tear them down. But not so the subject matter of this video. At the beginning of this summer, I was looking around my area for abandoned farmhouses because I wanted to do a photo series for Deviantart. Back then, I found some abandoned looking farmhouses, which turned all out to be regular, albeit pretty ugly houses, housing folks more on the rednecky side of things. My ruin-free days are over, however, as today we won't only explore an abandoned farm, but also a World War II bunker that's located directly under it. Sounds interesting? Well then, join me as I try to stay serious for about 2 minutes to give you a short rundown of the historical background of the ruin itself. Before we begin, however, I'd like to give a quick shout out to a friend of mine who accompanied me on this exploration. She's a very talented photographer and responsible for most of the pictures you are going to see throughout this video. Links to her social media can be found in the description. With all that good stuff out of the way, I am the artist mostly referred to as Holder 539, and this is a cabinet of the strange and macabre. Originally, the Heisenhof served as a knight's estate. From 1686 until 1839, it housed the rich van Ramdorf family. Back then, the cottage was known as Dubbenlager or Gut Dubben. The next noteworthy chapter in the cottage's history came in the 1930s, when with the rise of Nazi Germany, the Heisenhof became part of Anlage Weserwehr, an ammunitions factory owned by the Eibar GmbH. During that time, the Heisenhof and surrounding buildings would mostly house prisoners, often people from Eastern Europe, brought in by the Nazis for forced labor in the ammunitions factory. As the war came to an end, around 1945 the Heisenhof was liberated by Allied forces, which it housed until 1949. From 1957 until 1996, the property once again saw usage as barracks for soldiers, this time however for the German Bundeswehr. These days, the only remaining trace of military usage of the Heisenhof is a bunker which is located under one of the crumbling side buildings of the facility. Traces of the war, however, are not the only ghastly reminder of the perversions of Nazism that can be found on the Heisenhof. In the year 2003, the property was bought by the nebulous right-wing organization called the Wilhelm Tietje Stiftung, founded by an actual ex-Nazi, the titular Wilhelm Tietje, and spearheaded by infamous neo-Nazi and white supremacist Jürgen Rieger. Not much can be found on the internet these days about the actual goals of the ominous Tietje Stiftung, except they had to do with some warped ideology about racial purity and selective breeding. Luckily, help arrived against the neo-Nazis from an unlikely source. Since the dubious foundation was officially based out of Great Britain, the British government seized them in 2005 after discovering inconsistencies in their business reports. The neo-Nazis tried in vain to smuggle their monetary resources past authorities using a newly founded sub-company. But times shouldn't get easier for the neo-Nazis, as now on top of the big lawsuit in Great Britain, German authorities too began to move in on the foundation. Over the next few years, German authorities made multiple attempts to legally get a hold of the properties owned by the Tietje Stiftung. However, despite tireless protesting from the German people against the neo-Nazi group, it took until 2009 for the next big breakthrough in the case to happen, as the mills of German bureaucracy turned slowly as ever. The death of Jürgen Rieger in 2009 finally meant an end for the Titian-Stiftung. The years, however, hadn't moved gently past the Heisenhof. As the property re-entered the market in 2011, it was marked for demolition. The only thing saving the building was its historical significance and the costly nature of its demolition. On the other hand, damages on the buildings were just too great to make restoration worthwhile, and also locals feared for the cottage to become a meeting spot for neo-Nazis due to its moved history. For those reasons, the Heisenhof kept just rotting away for some years as a canvas for vandals and a temple for vagrants, until a private investor stepped in and bought the property for way under its value. These days, the Heisenhof still very much lays in ruins. Neither fit to be turned into a museum, nor to be used as a farm, the new owner of the Heisenhof has found a way more interesting way to make money off of the decaying ruins of the former von Ramdor estate. These days, photographers or people who simply want to be alone in a ruin for some other weird reason can purchase the right to do so on the Heisenhof for a small fee. And that's exactly what we did this September. While a small portion of the property is occupied by farming equipment and the cattle of what seems to be a local farmer, 4 buildings are still open and left for exploration. There's also the bunker under one of them, but we'll get to that later. The one building that's in the best shape out of all of them is what must at one point have been the main building of the Ramdor estate, with its 3 floors, a huge attic and a living room that could almost be classified as a small ballroom. This impressive structure was where we took most of our photos. That building was where we found the strange laboratory-looking bathroom thingy. Still not quite sure what that originally was intended to be, because there were like cables coming out of the floor and those rectangular vent thingies on the ceiling. So yeah, that was kind of creepy. Another funny thing about the creepy laboratory washing room of doom was that we found it right next to the living room, and the living room was the least broken up looking part of the whole house. It almost looked kind of homely, with some previous groups of artists apparently having left some booze and some plates and spoons there. There was a lot of random shit just strewn about, and a lot of furniture that was still intact to a point where you could sit on it, except chairs. There were like just a bunch of broken chairs. And then we came around with even more random stuff and parked all our equipment there, and all the bottles of water we had to bring, because there's no damn running water anywhere on that property we could have used for the water in my flasks for the outfit I was wearing for the photos. And I sure as hell didn't want to fill those things preemptively and risk having colored water going all over my car seats. The stuff we were using, by the way, to color the water in the flasks was just muffin topping. I originally was planning on getting myself some food color, but I was kind of stupid and bought the wrong thing, but it ended up kind of working out with some adjustments and a lot of shaking. After looking around the ground floor and filling all our flasks with water, we decided to continue our exploration on the first floor. After climbing a pretty impressive staircase, we were confronted with something pretty usual on the Heisenhof: a smashed up bathroom. Some previous visitor of the Heisenhof must have had a big personal vendetta against sinks. Maybe one of their loved ones drowned in one, but then again, on the Heisenhof there is no water, so drowning in a sink is pretty out of question, and most of them are smashed anyways. Another highlight of the first floor was a room I came to dub the room of stupid shelves, because it had a giant shelf lining the entirety of the walls of the room, but this shelf was about 30 centimeters under the room's ceiling. I mean, first off, what should you put like directly under the ceiling of your room, and who is going to see it up there? And dusting up there must be a bloody nightmare. But I don't think anyone has thought about dusting on the Heisenhof for a very long time, because as you'll notice, trash is littered about everywhere, and there's even a second floor room where there's fucking sand on the floor in one corner. I mean, sand, how does it get into the second floor of a building? I most likely will never know, but I appreciate it being there. But despite that nice indoor beach setting, for taking photos we mostly stuck to the second floor and the creepy as hell stereotypical attic with a dodgy ladder leading to it. Another nice feature of this part of the Heisenhof. The attic even comes with some rusty old boilers and a singular lawn chair. Luckily I didn't have to sit on that lawn chair because the cobwebs hanging off it told of 8-legged monstrosities big enough to eat me in one piece. Despite all the dust and cobwebs, however, and even the carcasses of some dead insects and small animals lying around in some rooms, the main building of the Ramdar estate is still the one in the best shape and the most sanitary out of all of them. Where it has functioning doors and windows you actually need a key to unlock. The second building, for example, our next destination, doesn't even have a door without a massive hole in it. Maybe the owner thought that the small jungle of nettles and thorn vines surrounding the second building would be enough to deter any intruders or keep them from actually finding it. This doesn't seem to be the case, however, because the second building is the most vandalized out of all of them, and also the one under which the bunker lies. Otherwise, building number 2 might just be the most uninteresting out of all of them, because it consists pretty much of 3 stories of small one-room apartments all arranged in the same layout. On the upside, the building features some interesting graffiti and some relics from the past. For example, most of the rooms actually had cord telephones on the wall. I mean, a telephone with a cord on it? How ridiculous! But old as technology is not nearly the most ridiculous thing in this building. But hold a 539, you may ask. What's more ridiculous than a telephone where you have to stand 5 feet away from the bloody thing the whole time we are using it? Well, how about a dead bird someone has painted silver? Yes, that's right everybody, a dead bird painted silver. So somebody must have actually gone through the process of buying silver spray paint, bringing it to the Heisenhof, going up to the second floor of the second building, finding a dead bird there, or bringing one, I guess, then spray painting it, moving it about 20 centimeters to the side, and then probably take a photo of it. Fucking weirdo. Anyway, the dead bird on the floor wasn't the most disgusting thing in the room, however, for the very next thing I came across was advertisement for freaking Nazis. As mentioned previously, the Heisenhof has had its little problems with neo-Nazis in the past, but apparently some of those couldn't even be bothered to clean up behind themselves. Spoilers, the poster you see me kicking in this here piece of video shouldn't be the last one we would encounter that day. The question that bothered me then and there, however, wasn't where that poster came from, but what those little plastic thingies shaped like yellow peppers were, and what their purpose was. Other than the room with a silvery bird corpse and all the other trash, there wasn't really that much interesting stuff to see in the second building, except some more broken toilets and smashed telephones. I also found a flyer advertising the opening of a copy shop in town, and that was kind of hilarious because for once I think that shop might be actually closed by now, and even if it isn't, who still uses copy shops? Oh, and some of the wall compartments supposed to contain fire hoses were filled with trash and random keys that didn't actually seem to belong to any of the doors. I mean, I didn't try them, but most of the doors were busted anyway. But all the random destruction in the second building couldn't compete with the third one, which, for starters, had a huge hole in the roof. The building itself looked to at some point have been some sort of farmhouse/family home type of deal. Upon entering, we were first greeted by an old shoe and a busted up fuse box. The rest of the ground floor was reclaimed by nature in most parts. And for anyone who has ever wondered what a living room would look like with ivy growing all over the floor and walls, this is the building for you. Also, fans of the Harry Potter franchise will be happy to find a small walk-in closet under the staircase to the second floor. In there, however, you won't find Daniel Radcliffe, just a bunch of hooks to hang your clothes on. If you, for some reason, ever feel like keeping your clothing in a damp compartment under the stairs, I mean, that would be kind of weird, but not as weird as what you'd find after climbing those stairs. Actually, that building seemed to be almost organized as some sort of pyramid of weirdness, because where on the first floor there was a room with a huge heart and some initials on the wall, next to a freaking disgusting bathroom filled with an old VHS, a DVD, some batteries and somebody's knickers, the floor above it had even more tat lying around. One of the highlights of that floor definitely was the glorious hole-in-the-roof room, where the floor looked like it could collapse at the drop of a hat. Luckily, I didn't drop my hat. Coming in at a close second is what at one point must have been the kitchen area of the building. Why you would have that at what's basically the attic is beyond me, but I won't complain, because there we found some awesome old mugs, a knife and even some strange old comic book. At this point in the video you may ask yourself, hey, wasn't there something about a bunker? Wasn't this douchebag going to explore a Nazi bunker and get horribly mutilated by Nazi zombies or something? Of course not. How should I make that video then? That would be silly. But as a person of my word, guess I'm kind of obligated to actually show something resembling a bunker now, do I? So I think I'll just shut the hell up and let my past me take it away from here with the bunker footage. Okay, now we're entering the bunker level. I'm more or less saying this just so that future me in editing knows that creepy music, please insert. What? Now I'm supposed to deliver fitting music? Alright. Wait a minute, I'll cue something up. This will be over in a jiffy. Let me just, wait a minute. There we go. When I was saying earlier that I was going to shut the fuck up now, I wasn't quite serious. Because you see, for some stupid reasons there are horrible audio interferences all over the bunker footage in some places, and I just had to cut the audio. Otherwise everybody's eardrums would be probably bleeding by now. I think I found the Nazi water source. It's just Kaltwasser rechts. Okay, das ist aber ja schon ganz schön cool irgendwie. Right up the corridor from the only room in the whole bunker with still functional electrical lighting, we found this lovely hobo hideout behind a heavy-looking metal door. While I still wonder if all the random clutter placed around the old sleeping bag in this dark and otherwise pretty desolated-looking room were really left behind by a vagrant seeking shelter from the elements, or by some other pretentious douchebags like ourselves, it certainly checked off a lot of horror tropes. I mean, seriously, what's up with the abandoned Disney merch? After I was forced to continue my exploration of the bunker alone, I had the choice between going down one of two corridors. During my entire time in the first one I decided to check out, the audio of my camera kept spazzing out royally, so I had to mute the entirety of it. Some people might attribute those interferences to the fact that I was using a cell phone as one of my main sources of lighting. The more horror-savvy amongst you might jump to the conclusion that audio and video glitches are often associated with the presence of ghosts, or losing in that stupid Slenderman flash game that was popular a few years ago. At the end of the corridor there also was a tiny door held shut by a little padlock that was pretty modern looking. If this only locked area in the whole bunker was there to prevent some idiot from climbing into a shaft and dying, or if there actually was a corpse behind there already, we'll never know, but some mysteries better stay unanswered, like for what those strange machine plans on the wall were. Ordinary water pump or military black project of mass destruction? You decide. This second corridor should hold a horror far greater than anything that I encountered so far on the Heisenhof. Mistreatment of records, or at least part of them. I didn't really check if there was still a vinyl in the sleeve, but judging by all the trash littered around, I highly doubt it would be still functional. On the bright side, the audio quality I got while exploring this corridor was much better. Okay. Somebody wasn't keeping his cigarettes close to his heart as it looks. But here we can... Whoa, what the hell? Ooh, okay. I think that's just a camera flash, but it messed up our lighting pretty good, so maybe it's bloody Slenderman.
The presumable Slenderman attack, however, left the audio fucked up long enough for me to give you a fair bit of advice. Ready? If you're ever exploring a ruin and feel like checking out the toilet, don't!
Whoa, okay, one thing I really want to know. Oh my fucking god. That's creepy as hell. Was that thing there before? Wait a minute. Bloody photo of this.
Anyone else notice how there was no creepy Winnie the Pooh Hellspawn plushie when I entered the room, but there definitely was one when I left it? And anybody else notice a loud ass footsteps? Might have gotten pranked there.
I don't know, if it's just me or if it really smells fucking awful in here. What the hell is this? Seeing that there were Nazis involved constructing this, I really want to know what... Ooh, we actually can open this door. But there's just fucking nothing inside. Okay. And here it should lead us back to the main corridor. Okay, that thing just closed on itself. Ghosts? Ooh, no, it's a frog. It's not a ghost. It's a toad. Oh, is it a frog or it's a frog? Look at this. It's just a frog. No ghosts in here. Just a frog.